If you're wondering why your Google Shopping ads aren't hitting the ROAS you want, stop looking at your bid strategy for a minute and start looking at your product. Because here's the hard truth. You can have the best bid strategy in the world, but if your product looks like a low effort Shopify export and your title is just blue shirt, nobody is going to click. In 2025, Google Shopping is a visual feed. Your customer is scrolling past 15 or 20 competitors in about 3 or 4 seconds. If your image doesn't pop and your title doesn't match exactly what they're looking for, you're effectively invisible. My name is Liam, and in this video, I'm gonna roast some of the biggest D2C brands in the world. We're gonna look at their product titles and their product images, and I'm gonna show you the mistakes they're making that are costing them millions. And then I'm gonna show you how to fix them. I'll show you how we're using Gemini to take boring, flat product photos and turn them into high CTR images that stop the scroll. So let's get into it. Okay, so for any e-commerce brands, I think one of the most impactful things you can be doing is to try to increase the number of qualified clicks through Google Shopping. For me, I find that Google Shopping is most certainly on Google, and in my opinion across the whole ecosystem, one of the most scalable ways of growing an e-commerce brand. And the reason for that is that people in Google Shopping generally are in a shopping mindset. I think they're often ready to buy, and if you can convert this cohort of people quite well and quite cost efficiently, it tends to be an avenue that you can scale quite well. So if you're an e-commerce brand, I would spend 70 to 80% of your time when it comes to Google Ads focused on improving the number of qualified clicks through Google Shopping. So not just all clicks, but qualified clicks. So I'm going to talk a small bit about what's involved in increasing the number of qualified clicks through Google Shopping and what I think some of the biggest D2C brands in the world could be doing to actually improve that too. So when it comes to increasing the number of qualified clicks, there are 4 real avenues that you can take to help you improve this. So I'm going to start with the reviews. So any reviews coming through, they give you the star rating in Google Shopping. It's quite eye-catching, builds social proof, and it's a really good way of getting clicks. I've mentioned it loads of times in different videos, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on it now. The other thing is price. So it is essentially a price comparison site. If you've got a lower price than competitors, quite often you'll get more clicks. Now, as a brand owner, it's going to be difficult for you to adjust price too much. You obviously have your COGS, your fulfillment fees and everything like that, and your price is generally pretty locked in. The only other thing you can do is promos. So if you're running a promo of any sort, even like a first order promo, you can get these set up in Google Merchant Center so you can show those sale tags and actually really increase the kind of attention grabbing element of your shopping listing and actually just drive some more clicks as well. So they're 2 good ways as well. But for this video, I want to focus on your product image and your product title. So with a product image, it needs to be eye-catching. Like any creative, you have to consider this an ad creative. It needs to be eye-catching to draw clicks. It also quite often benefits from being an image that shows the product's use case or its value proposition or its USP. That's something I'll get into in a later part of the video, how you can do that. The next thing then is your product title. So your product title, when it comes over from Shopify, is just whatever product title you have in your PDP. So it integrates with Google Merchant Center and then it gets spat out into your Google Shopping listings exactly as is. Now, for a lot of people, that might be your brand name followed by the product name followed by a size. And quite often that's not enough. It doesn't give the user enough information, particularly if the user is cold, if they haven't seen your brand, they haven't interacted with your brand before, well, then they need to be given more kind of compelling reasons to click on your ad in the first place. So your product title has to grab attention. I don't mean it has to be full of buzzwords and, capital letters and things like that, but it has to be attention grabbing enough that it's either, clearly demonstrating some USPs or parts of the product that are, give you a stronger kind of value than your competitors, let's say. But more importantly than that, it needs to really outline key product category terms. So if you're selling a t-shirt, you need to fundamentally say that it's a t-shirt. I know it sounds really stupid, but I see this all the time, particularly with like skincare brands and some fashion brands as well, is that they might call their skincare product a certain product, like the Reviver and the Reviver number 5. And nowhere in that product title does it actually say what the product is. Now, Google needs to index your products. So there's 2 reasons you need a really solid product title. One is that Google has to index your product to make sure it's serving for the right queries. So it uses a number of different attributes, not just your product title, but I always think you should be including your product category in your product title to help Google with indexing, even though you can use things like descriptions and product categories and things like that. But the second thing then is you need to, show people what your product is. So it isn't always instinctive. You've got a very small thumbnail image and then you have a product title. And aside from that, you don't really have much more real estate to play with. So you need to make sure that your product is containing the key product category terms. So I'm going to get into that again now in a moment. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to break down 4 brands today. You're going to know all 4 of them, I'm sure, and have some recommendations over how I would improve performance for them. So I'm going to start with Represent. Now I'm recording this the week of Black Friday. Represent have a sale on at the moment, so I just search for Represent t-shirt to see if I want a new Represent tee for myself. Now, what we're seeing here is that all these images are just a plain product flat lay on plain white background. You can see the sale tag, I mentioned that earlier. You can see the reviews coming through. You can see some information about description. Here is the brand name, etc. And here is price with a slash through. You won't actually be able to see that now until I actually pull up the listing in more depth. But here is our product title, and then here obviously is our product image. So I want to start by saying what's good. So the reviews coming through is good. The promo with the active sale tag and the slash through pricing is good. And then the free delivery tag is good also. So there's a lot of things that are obviously being done good. Represent a huge brand. I'm sure they have someone actively managing this. What could be improved? Well, pretty kind of bluntly, I think the product image and also the product title could be improved. Now, you can see all these product images are essentially the same. And for a lot of high, like fashion brands or high SKU brands, it's very difficult to manage their feed effectively and kind of mix up different product images and things like that. But you can see, like, even here, it's quite difficult to see this t-shirt. It blends into the background. I don't think these give a very good representation of the t-shirt itself. Here it's like creased, and I just don't think it's showing these really premium, heavy cotton t-shirts in their best light. This doesn't scream a $125 t-shirt to me based on this product listing. So what we'll do is we'll go down here. This is the product I'm going to focus on. This is our Represent tee. This is the exact product image from the ad. And all I did was I gave this to Gemini and I explained the scene that I wanted to set. I explained that I wanted to make sure that the image was product centric. So the product had to be the main focus. It had to take up a lot of the screen. The product could be changed in no way whatsoever. And this is what it gave me on a 1 prompt. This is it. So I don't think by any stretch this is perfect. I think the shadowing is a bit off, but you can see the initial image is so much more elevated than this. You can see a typical, customer of Represent, I would say, someone probably in their ideal client profile wearing this. You can see it's got that kind of traditional Represent kind of boxy fit, slightly oversized. And you can see I asked for it to be in kind of a street background, kind of in a dusky setting. And that's what it gave me. As I said, it's not perfect, but it's a much, much greater step up than this. And it gives me an indication of what this t-shirt might look like on. And I'd be much more likely to click through this, particularly if it wasn't just Represent tees here, but if it was Represent's competitors. So if there were other competitors here and they all had this plain product flat lay and I had this product image that really stood out, I would be much more inclined to click on this. Now, I want to stress during this video, this isn't a case of me saying this is bad from this brand and this is better. There's lots of context that I'm not seeing. I'm not managing these accounts, but I'm just trying to help you apply some kind of first principles about how you can improve your click-through rate and what you can do very easily. By the way, these are not things that are very labor intensive. Okay, it can be, and it isn't just a case of okay, we're going to change this once and then all of a sudden it's going to be fixed. But these are the kind of little shifts you need to make on Google that quite often, I would say 90% of people are not making, that can actually really improve your performance. Because quite often what I see with Google is people fixated on what I'm going to call outputs, which is probably a bit of a misnomer, but changing bid strategies, changing budgets, changing bids, things like that inside the ad account, when actually what's much more important is changing inputs. So your product feed, your keywords, your creative, your landing pages. That's what I would class as your inputs. And they're going to have a much more profound effect than any little kind of bid strategy tweaks or device adjustments or anything like that. So this is kind of what I'm just trying to instill into people, is that really focusing on these inputs and kind of putting in a bit of graft and a bit of elbow grease will actually have a much greater impact for you. So then next up, I mentioned the title could be improved as well. So let's get into that. So first of all, the title is too short. So for context, you get 150 characters on Google Merchant Center for the product title. You can only see about 70 characters initially without clicking through to the actual full product listing. So those 70 characters on the front end are the most important because they're the ones that most people are going to see, and they're going to encourage people to then kind of click through and look at the remainder of the characters, etc. So what I would do to make it that bit better is to broaden the catchment on key terms. So what do I describe as a key term here? Well, oversized men's tee, 100% cotton heavy tee, slightly oversized t-shirt, premium cotton tee. So we don't want to repeat all these keywords, but these are all really important terms, particularly the oversized men's tee. So oversized men's tee from represent, 100% heavy cotton t-shirt, slightly oversized fit, premium fit, elegance in motion. Now, the thing is here, we have elegance in motion t-shirt, jet black. Now, you could include jet black if you want. You should definitely include it in your description and in your product attributes for color in Merchant Center. But I would argue that the customer can see it's black. Now, you might argue then, well, maybe it's navy, maybe it's black. The customer is looking for a black t-shirt. Okay, fine. That's a reasonable argument to make and you could include it. But you should definitely be including things like oversized men's tee, because this is something that a lot of people are searching for. I know this because I've just done the keyword kind of search volume on it. And it's something that we want to be pulling this particular product in for. So into this kind of search query mix. And then some other features. It's 100% cotton, it's a heavy tee, it's premium cotton. We need to justify the higher price point because we're probably going to come in at a higher price point here than competitors. So we need to justify that. We need to talk about being premium. Elegance in motion t-shirt doesn't really mean anything. It might sound nice, but if I'm cold traffic, I've never heard of represent. Elegance in motion doesn't really mean anything to me. And I know it's a t-shirt. I can tell it's a t-shirt. I can kind of tell it's jet black. So I don't think this title is doing enough to A, broaden catchment to bring in more relevant terms, and then B, to actually, of those relevant terms, to increase the number of qualified clicks. So we want to have a title like this, right, that brings in more qualified clicks and then also encourages those people to click. So it brings in, more qualified eyes and then encourages them to click. So that's the two functions of our title. And together with our image like this, I think this is a much greater step up. Now, you can disagree in the comments if you want, but I would definitely be testing something like this. And as I said earlier, look, I don't have the context on what's going on behind the closed doors of Represent inside in their PPC account, but these are just some recommendations I would have that I think you should be applying to your own brand. Next up is bulk powders. So I reckon a lot of people should be familiar with this. The product I'm looking at are their everyday super greens. So essentially these are just full of kale and broccoli and apple, and you mix it up in a powder and it becomes a drink that you drink obviously every day. And it's basically like an immunity kind of boost and things like that. So what you have here, what's good? It's product centric. That's the image I'm referring to. Basically, the only thing you can see here is the product itself. And the title contains super greens, which is obviously a key term for them. Now, what could be improved? I said the image isn't particularly eye-catching. So again, I'm always looking through the lens of cold traffic. And when you set it up correctly, I think it's a very good vehicle to go after cold traffic. If you're familiar with bulk powders and you know them, and maybe you've bought from them before, you've seen a Facebook ad, well then they've got a very distinctive branding, I would say. So showing off their branding in this fashion is a good thing. It will probably catch your eye and you might be inclined to click through. But if you're cold, as let's say I am in this instance, I've no allegiance to bulk. It means nothing to me. It looks exactly the same as the product next door. So what I also think could be improved is not only make the image more eye-catching, but also the title could be improved. It's very, very short. Again, it's not really benefit focused. Like 300 grams could be better replaced, as I think, with number of servings. 300 grams to me, I don't know how many servings that is. Is that one serving? Is that 50 servings? So I'm kind of mentally trying to figure out what I'm getting at that price point as well. Again, going back to the price comparison side of things. So once again, I just use Gemini to just spice this up really quickly. One prompt like that. I'm not going back refining this. If I was, I could make them much better, etc. But just to give you an idea of what's capable with the software that's out there at the moment. This was all I did. Very simple. It doesn't really give you much more information. It shows the drink poured out. It shows the different components. So the broccoli, the apple, the powder is there. It's just a bit of a, it brings it up a small bit in terms of elegance. It catches the eye. It's more visually appealing, and it's, in my opinion, going to increase click-through rates once again. So that's the product image, and then the product title. So some recommendations I would have. I would still try and keep super greens in there. I think it's important, and I'd lead with it. So super greens powder. Again, I search volume here and it's pretty high. So some of the benefits then. So it's a daily boost. It gives you immunity, energy, and fitness. Contains 50 vitamins, minerals, and mushroom complex, 60 servings. And we can say once again towards the end, it's from bulk powders. Now, again, by no means perfect, but you can see it's a step up. It's probably going to pull some more information in for, greens powder for immunity, or greens powder for energy, or daily greens for full of vitamins and things like that. So it's going to increase our catchment. It's hopefully going to increase our click-through rate by having some more kind of relevant terms. And as I said, it also contains the serving quantity as well, just to give people that framing of how much they're probably going to pay for serving as well. So they are a couple of things that I do with bulk to improve that. Next up then, we've got Hexclad. I'm sure everyone's familiar with Hexclad. This is what I searched for. I think I searched for like a stainless steel frying pan or something, and a few competitors came up. And you can see what's good here is that Hexclad have made the effort, and this is actually, there's continuity on their landing page as well. You can see everything they do is kind of like dark background, and it just stands out enough compared to the other listings here. I don't think it's phenomenal by any stretch of the imagination, but it is just decent enough that it looks slightly different and is kind of drawing the eye a small bit. Other things that are good, you've obviously got the promo here. I'd be able to see it a bit easier if I kind of click through with the sale tag. We have details on the free shipping. We have our reviews. So not a bad listing by any stretch, but what I think could be improved once again is I think this image could definitely be improved. And I think this is actually a market where I'm not seeing a whole lot of testing whatsoever from all the other competitors. And also the title, very short. This is it. There's nothing else there. You can see the competitors actually have a longer title, and it is not very benefit focused, or doesn't outline any features either as well. So this is our product image as it stands. This is a one click on Gemini. I asked for it just to have a sizzling pan with a steak in it. I don't think it's fantastic, but I do think it's a step up. But then I said, you know what I'll do? I'll actually go onto their product page and just see if they got any professional product imagery. I'm sure they paid thousands upon thousands for a studio shoot. And sure enough, they do. So this, to me, is a significant step up from this. And it also shows one of the value propositions. So what I said earlier in the video was that you can use these lifestyle images to show off some of your USPs or your value props. And one of them here is that this is safe for use with metalware. And you can actually see that with this metal spatula being used. So something very kind of nuanced, but if someone's in a real kind of research phase and they have lots of questions or lots of understanding about the type of frying pan they want, then they can just mentally flag this, and might just be enough to draw their eye and draw their click. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do. We're trying to get some marginal gains here and there. So with the title, some recommendations I'd have to change it. So as I said, look, you can see how short it is. So I searched for a stainless steel frying pan, and if we led with that, my eye would be definitely drawn to that. It's a non-stick pan, it's metalware safe. It's also got a lifetime guarantee. We can still include that it's 8 inches for those people that are looking specifically for a smaller pan. It's a hybrid fry pan. I don't quite understand what that means, but perhaps someone who's in a buying phase would know what that means. Maybe you can use it across different kind of food types and things. And we can still include Hexclad here, but again, I know it's different for these brands that have really high brand equity, but generally every brand should be trying to appeal to cold traffic. If these ads are only serving to warm traffic, that's fine. You can, front load the brand name because of that brand equity, that brand recognition. People will click through if they know it's from Hexclad, that's fine. But if you're going after cold customers, which I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this video are trying to do, then you don't want to be leading with that, because it's not really giving, customers or potential customers any real value, to be honest. And that's not a slight in your brand or your brand name, but it kind of means nothing to people if they haven't heard from you before. So next up, and the only thing I'm going to focus on here is the image, because I think so much can be done with the image. This brand is Cotopaxi, I believe is the correct pronunciation. But essentially what they are is like a travel kind of brand, and they focus mainly on backpacks for travelers and hikers and that kind of aesthetic and that type of kind of buyer profile. And this is the product image. So you can see the product image here is pretty bland, pretty vague. And then I actually just went onto their Instagram, and like their Instagram is very travel centric. You can see all this like the aesthetic is very clear of what they're going for, who they're trying to appeal to, and even on the website there's kind of continuity in that. But then when you go back to the product image, it kind of doesn't really tell you anything. You know, it's just a plain bag. Could be a child's bag, to be honest. Looking at the colors and things like that, I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, okay, this is a bag for kind of traveling. And again, they're kind of, you know, relying on their brand name here. They say travel pack, okay, but beyond that, I don't really know much about it. So what we can do straight away to try and, you know, attract that ideal customer persona that they're clearly trying to do on organic, so I assume this is a something that they're actively trying to do across the board, is just something like this. This, once again, and I'm not sure if the proportions are off. I probably should have fed it like a reference lifestyle image from the website of this exact bag, but to my understanding, this actually size-wise, it looks quite big, but I think it is quite a big bag. But like, look at the kind of aesthetic of this. It's much more in keeping with who their ideal customer is. And once again, like when you compare this image, and you could even look at, you know, making it like here and, you know, down to here and here, and like still keeping the product like centric and taking up most of the space while still having, you know, that element of, okay, I can see myself using this bag when I go to X place, or I'm going on my holidays and I want a bag for that. And, you know, I can see myself in this product image. And then they're brought through, and then that kind of continuity of messaging and who the bag is actually for is on the website. And I just think that would do a much better job than something like this that just doesn't really speak to anyone. It's very just matter of fact. And I think a lot of brands get stuck in the idea that Google Shopping is just kind of a plug and play, when in fact it's so much more than that. And if you spent a quarter as much time on Google Shopping creative as you did on your kind of Facebook ads creative, you'd actually probably see better returns. And I know that's very speculative to say, but I think there's such an upside to spending a bit of time or investing a little bit of time and money in something like this. But as I said, this was one prompt on Gemini Nano Banana Pro. It's the only thing I'm using. You can even see like the text here is perfect. The text down here is perfect. So I haven't been able to achieve that with any other models aside from the new Gemini that got released on I'm going to say the 22nd of November. So I would really recommend using that. Get the Pro version, it's much better. And yeah, start testing these product images. This is like kind of an example prompt I used. Once again, I didn't actually invest a lot of time into this. This was only done for the purposes of the video, but I gave it some instructions as to what it was. I said the highest possible click-through rate is the goal here, while adhering to our guidelines. I'm going to give them the product flat lay, for example, make sure that, you know, we maintain absolute fidelity around the color, the shape, the logos, etc. And then make sure the product is focused centrally. Then the scene, the kind of lifestyle context, this is where you can kind of change it as to whatever you want. A small bit, you know, the same with the kind of lighting or the mood. The negative constraints then are obviously no text overlays. We don't want any watermarks, promo badges, borders, extra graphics of any kind. We want to just make this really focused on the product. And then some of the text specs then for the aspect ratio to be square, and then the quality so we can have really high quality. This is basically all I did for the prompt. It was very straightforward. As I said, I used it once across each of these brands to deliver, you know, product images like this, product images like that, and here as well. So, and then lastly, obviously the represent one too. So you can see this is a really untapped market for a lot of D2C brands. Even the biggest brands in the space seem to be neglecting it. And like, you can see the difference. It didn't take a photo shoot, and it didn't take a massive budget, and it took me very little effort. And when you improve your click-through rate with better product images like these, with more enticing product titles, you're increasing your ad rank. So you're actually going to serve higher up the auction. You'll probably serve for even lower bids, and the economics will start to make much more sense because Google will value your ad as being higher quality because it's getting more clicks than competitors. So it's almost like the opposite of a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle for your competitors, but it's a really positive feedback loop for you as a brand owner. Now, if you want my team and I to actually personally audit your feed, so audit your product titles, your product images, and rebuild your feed using this exact setup, click the link below and book a free strategy call with me, and we can go through your top 10 or 15 SKUs on that call and see what we can be doing to improve click-through rate and improve performance. And I'll show you exactly how much revenue you're leaving on the table right now by actually neglecting these key parts of your feed. And once you book that call and you want to learn a little bit more about how we're running Google Ads in 2026, click on this video here to do just that.